إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Everyone by now is aware of the incidents that have taken place with the defamatory movie made about the Prophet ﷺ and the slanders that have been made against him. And we know about the reaction that has also taken place with the protests and the violence and an ambassador even being killed. And in seeing these types of situations, we want to look at Islam and try to contextualize it. Understand what happened. Contextualize it in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. How did he react to these types of things? How would he command us to respond and to behave in light of such adversity? And so in doing so, we have to look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And it's not enough just to look at an incident here or an incident there. But it's important to understand major events in his life and how they played out. We understand, for example, when he began preaching, and the Quraysh were against him. And they cursed him, they made fun of him, they tried to stop him. It got to the point where the clans of Quraysh got together and they decided to boycott Banu Hashim, to boycott the entire clan of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because he would not stop preaching La ilaha illallah. So they got together to banish their entire clan, everyone affiliated with him because of that one statement. And even when we look at the most vile and violent and evil criminals in society, when we put them in prison, we still give them food and water. We still allow their families to visit them. And yet Banu Hashim was boycotted and banished to such an extent that other clans were not even allowed to take them food. No one was allowed to marry from their clan. No one was allowed to have any contact with them. Such was this banishment that the Prophet ﷺ went through. It was so tough that it said that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was one of the wealthiest companions, burned through almost all of his wealth, trying to feed them, trying to help them, trying to support them. Such was the difficulty. And then when this ended, the Prophet ﷺ did not see ease. The year following that banishment was the year of sorrow. The toughest year in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, where he lost the love of his life, Khadija radiallahu anha, the one who comforted him, the one who was his confidant, the one that he went to. When revelation first came and he was scared, he didn't know what was going on, Khadija is the one that provided him support, provided him love. And in that same year, he lost Abu Talib, his beloved uncle that raised him and gave him physical support, even though he did not believe. But it was his protection that kept the Prophet ﷺ safe. And in the span of 1 year, he lost both. He lost his emotional support as well as the physical support. And so now, not knowing what else to do, having no protection, having no one now to vouch for him, no one to keep him safe, he decides to go to Ta'if, a nearby town, and we're all familiar with this story, hoping that he can speak to some of the leaders there, hoping that they'll listen to his message, hoping that they'll believe, hoping that they'll take the Muslims under their protection. And what happens when he goes? They insult him. They physically abuse him. They call him names. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They send their children to throw rocks at him, to try their best to humiliate him as much as they can. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam later told Aisha when he broke his jaw in Uhud, she asked him, "Is this the hardest thing that you've ever been through?" He said, "No. Ta'if was worse. Ta'if was tough." Because after that incident, the Prophet ﷺ went and made a dua to Allah. He said, "Oh Allah, to you alone I complain of my weakness, the meagerness of my resources and my insignificance before men. I have no power. I came here and they treated me like this. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, O most merciful of those who have mercy. You are the Lord of the weak. Anta Rabbi, you are my Lord. You are the one that takes care of me and nourishes me. Into whose hands do you entrust me? To some remote stranger who will treat me ill? Who will abuse me? Or to an enemy that you have granted authority over my affairs?" This is a cry for help. "Oh Allah, I harbor no fear as long as you are not angry with me." Because the test that comes, either Allah is angry with us or either Allah is testing us to raise our rank. And He's saying, "Oh Allah, if you're not angry with me, then fine, I can deal with whatever comes. Yet your gracious support would be broader and a wider horizon for me. Your afiyah would be easier on me. Your help would be easier on me in this situation. I seek refuge in the light of your face, by which all darkness is illuminated and the things of this world and the next are set aright, so that I do not incur your anger nor am I touched by your wrath. Nevertheless, it is your prerogative to admonish as long as you are not satisfied and there is no strength or power except in you. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ." Do we not feel that pain of the Prophet ﷺ? This cry for help, this feeling of helplessness. That, "Oh Allah, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I went to Ta'if, I thought that was going to be my solution and it didn't work. I don't know what else to do. Oh Allah, I turn to you." Even in that moment of helplessness, his spiritual strength was still at his peak, knowing that, "Oh Allah, you are still my Rabb. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know yet what you have in store for me. But I entrust my affairs to you." And so we see the humility of the Prophet ﷺ. And we know that Jibreel then came to him and told him that, "Oh Ya Rasulullah, just give me the command. And the mountains next to Ta'if will crumble down. And these people will get justice for the way that they have treated you. What they deserve for the way that they tried to abuse you. Just give me the word." And the Prophet ﷺ, in this moment, in this pain, in this helplessness, he taught us an important lesson. And that is the lesson of optimism. And he told Jibreel, "No, because I hope that despite how evil these people are, I hope that their children will one day grow up to be Muslim and to believe." This was the character of the Prophet ﷺ. This was his honor. This was the way in which he conducted himself. After many years, when he came back to Mecca, after having been driven out, being forced to make hijrah, his companions being tortured, all of these things that happened, and he came back. And now they're all sitting there, and he asked them, how do you think that I will treat you? Because now he is in the position of authority. Now he is in the position to exact his revenge. Now he's in the position to give them a little bit, a taste of their medicine, of what they gave to him and to his companions. And he said, how do you think that I will treat you? How do you think that I will treat you? And they said that you are a noble man and you're the son of a noble man. And in this moment, when you're able to do whatever you want with us, we still know that you'll be merciful to us. And he said, you're all free to go. You're all free to go. When he had his chance, he forgave them. When he had his chance, he let them go. And not only did he let them go, but understand the level of deep personal concern of the Prophet ﷺ. Ikrimah, whose father is Abu Jahl, was coming. And the Prophet ﷺ said that Ikrimah is coming, welcome him, but do not say anything bad about his father. One of the greatest enemies of Islam, one of the people who caused so much pain to the Prophet ﷺ, one of the people who fought so hard against the cause of Islam. And the Prophet is saying that his son is coming. Don't make him feel bad. Don't say anything bad about him. Even in that moment of victory, he still had that level of concern. This was the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So we then contextualize. People back then said things against Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And it was responded to in the Quran. They say he's a magician. Allah responds to it. They say he's a sorcerer. Allah responds to it. Whatever claims they brought, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responded to it. And throughout history, people have brought whatever negative comments they want to bring. And they won't stop. They will continue. They'll continue doing it. But what we are responsible for, is understanding what our reaction is. When someone comes and brings this to us, what's my response? What do I do in return? And now don't get me wrong, let's understand one thing. It doesn't matter who said it. It doesn't matter how significant that person is. Someone spoke ill of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we should be angry. We should be upset. We should be offended. Because this is the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. We love him more than we love our own children, our own parents, our own families, and even ourselves. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when someone speaks ill of him, doesn't matter who it is, how noble or how low, we get upset. And being upset that someone spoke ill about him is a part of our faith. It's a part of our iman. If someone was to get up and insult the Prophet ﷺ and we felt nothing in our hearts, we felt no sadness, we felt no anger, we felt no emotion, then that would be a sign that our hearts are dead. But the fact that we feel this way shows that we have some faith, that we have some of that light of iman. That we will not stand for anyone saying anything bad about the Prophet ﷺ. But that doesn't mean that we then transgress those same boundaries that he taught to us. We don't transgress the same boundaries that he told us to follow. It feels almost embarrassing that I have to mention that Islam prohibits the killing of innocent people. That Islam prohibits killing diplomats and dignitaries and people that have been granted protection by the state. And yet we have to mention this. Yet we have to mention this because these acts are still taking place. People are violating the commandments that Allah has set forth. We look at the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we compare to how we react. There's an emotional response and an intellectual response. Emotionally, we're angered. Emotionally, we're upset. But intellectually, we cannot let those emotions get the best of us. Intellectually, we have to understand how to combat it. Understand that these people who say this about the Prophet ﷺ, they don't care about him. They don't care. All they want is to get a rise out of us. You know when a bully is bullying a kid? And all he wants is to get a response, get someone to throw the first punch. Just keep pushing buttons, just trying to get a response. This is the same way. All they want is to try to disunite us. All they want is to try to get a rise out of us, to try to make us act crazy so they can show, see, that's how the Muslims act, that's how they respond. But it falls on us to understand what the proper way of responding is. We have to learn that we can't take actions that make things worse, especially when those actions are not even allowed in our religion. How can we expect to go and tell the world that our Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was a mercy sent to mankind, and then we act toward other people without mercy? How can we say that our prophets are honored by Allah, and then we act in a dishonorable way? How would we expect the Prophet ﷺ? How would we expect for him, or how would we expect for him to have us respond in such a situation? Honoring him is by following his example. Honoring him is by acting in the way that he has taught us to act. By following his commandments, by following what he's told us to stay away from. That's the way in which we honor his legacy, by following his sunnah. By teaching people the true character of the Prophet ﷺ, by enacting it. And in the bigger picture, we understand that these things happen. They have happened, and they will continue to happen. But we look at the example of Rasulullah ﷺ, and we act with the same mercy, the same compassion, and the same optimism that he had. وَأَقُولُ قَوْلِي هَذَا أَسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ لَكُمْ وَاسْتَغْفِرُوهُ إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. One of the Prophet's companions, Thawban radiallahu anhu, was a slave that was freed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so Thawban, whenever he met Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would be happy. He would smile. He would go out of his way to make sure that he met him as many times as he could during the course of a day. Because every time he met him, he smiled, he got happy, he felt his iman go up. And so he carried on until one day came and he wasn't able to go meet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the next day the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and he saw Thawban. And Thawban was sad. He was down. He was upset. The Prophet was not used to this. He said that every time I see you, you're always happy, you're always smiling. What happened? And he said, Ya Rasulullah, I wasn't with you that day. And that day that I wasn't with you, it reminded me of death. It reminded me that one day you are going to enter Jannah. And not only are you going to enter Jannah, Ya Rasulullah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take you to the highest level of Jannah. You're going to be in the companion of the other prophets, with the shuhada, with all these great righteous people. You're going to be way up there. And Ya Rasulullah, if I make it into Jannah, I'm going to be all the way down here. I'm going to be at a much lower level. I'm not going to get to see you. I'm not going to get to hang out with you anymore. And Ya Rasulullah, that's if I make it into Jannah. If I don't make it into Jannah, then I'm never going to see you again. I'm never going to see you again. And just then Jibreel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَمَن يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النِّبِّيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. He brought down the ayah. Whoever obeys Allah and the Messenger, whoever follows Allah and His Messenger, whoever follows what they have made halal and stays away from what they have made haram, follows the basic teachings of their religion, those will be the ones upon whom Allah has bestowed favor of the prophets, the steadfast affirmers of truth, the martyrs and the righteous, and excellent they are as companions. And when Thoban heard this, he began to smile. He became happy again. And he used to go around telling people that this ayah was revealed because of me. Because I love the Prophet ﷺ so much that when I became sad and I was worried that I wouldn't see him again, Jibreel brought down this verse saying that all I have to do is just follow what he said and I'll be in the company of those prophets and those righteous and those martyrs. That's all I have to do and I'll be in their company. And so he became happy. That love for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam motivated him, it drove him. Now we might fall short in the way that we show our love of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We might fall short in following his sunnah. We might fall short in following those basic commandments. But it's time for us also to wake up now. It's not enough that we come now on Friday and say, let's take one or two small things that I'm going to build on for this week and next week and so on and so forth. If we truly want to fix this situation, we have to start doing something about it. We have to start teaching people about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the message that he came with, the concern that he had for people. Doesn't matter what people said about him. In the Quran it says that he is more concerned about them than they are of their own selves. They're running headfirst into the hellfire and they don't care, and it keeps the Prophet ﷺ up at night worrying about them going to the hellfire. That was the concern that he had for society around him. And so it's time for us to step up. It's not just enough that we start following the sunnah and doing the small things, but we have to now take it to a larger scale. Start educating people about the Prophet ﷺ. Start teaching our families about the Prophet ﷺ. Make a concerted effort that we begin to study the life, study the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, such that when incidents like this happen, we have a reference point. We know the Prophet's life inside out. We know how he responded. We know how he acted. We know the character that he had and the character that he displayed. And we know that when people push our buttons, we won't overreact. We'll no longer act without knowledge. We'll no longer go to work and tell people about the integrity of the Prophet and then cheat people at the same time. We won't tell our children that the Prophet ﷺ that following him is supposed to make you happy and successful, and our children never even see us smile. We make a concerted effort to learn the details of his life inside and out. The way that he dealt with his family, the way that he dealt with his business, the way that he dealt with society. The way in which he communicated the message of this Quran to all of mankind. And even though we can't meet him now, even though we don't see him now, his message is still with us. The Quran is still with us. The collections of his life are still with us. But what will it take for us to wake up and start learning it, start reading it, start applying it to our own life? making it a point to act in the manner in which the Prophet ﷺ acted, because if we all did that, then these types of things would no longer matter. As the saying goes, mountains are not shaken by the wind. And yet here we have a noble prophet of Allah, and a little bug, a little bit of wind is causing so much disturbance. It's a reflection on our weakness. It's a reflection on our own state. But it doesn't mean that hope is lost. It means that we now have to take action. We have to do something. And it starts with learning about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And whatever we learn about him, we practice it. We teach it to others, because as he said, whoever conveys from me even one line, one verse, one ayah, it's a reward. Whatever little bit that we know, whatever little bit that we learn, we convey. But the key here is that we're continuously learning, continuously improving, making it a point that these types of things no longer happen, and when they do, I can get up and I can speak confidently. Not speak without knowledge, but speak confidently and teach people and tell people and communicate to those around me how it is that the Prophet ﷺ acted, what his character was like, how he responded to adversity, how he treated the people around him, even the people who abused him, how he was so much better to them. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. كما صليت على آل إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في كل مكان. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.